What's good? It's TheLetterLBeats. I am doing a little bit of content for BusyWorksBeats.com. I'm also doing some content for my class at the University of Illinois, the Art of Beatmaking, Popular Music Production, $4.99. So today what I have is just a quick tutorial about some basics of sequencing. And incidentally tied to this, so I started using Reason before they had a blocks feature. And basically that blocks feature is intended to help you just get the parts of your song down. I don't really use blocks, but I want you to check out the homie Jelie 303. I'll get that link attached down at the bottom of the video. But you can check out how to sequence in Reason using blocks mode. So first, I just want to check out this beat. So this is, I usually drop one beat a week. And I was inspired just some of the music I listened to over the weekend, in particular that Feeno mixtape. Arian Foster used to play for the Texans. Man, he dropped a mixtape last April. I think it was called Flamingo and Koval under the rap name Feeno, and it's legit. So I was kind of inspired by that. Also inspired by some of the Jake 1 tutorials. So I started with this sample from Joe from All the Things Your Man Won't Do. And I got some effects on there, so I want you to hear without that if I have that available. So I had a Shaperbox on there. And I put a little, low, I filtered it a little bit. So that's the basis of my song. Now, what I want to do is, I want to look at these elements of sequencing, right? So we're going to look at sections, transitions, and variations, right? And so just showing you that kind of gives you the sections part of it, right? And so the way I learned the sequence was from a Henny, the Bizness, when they did a video on Every Girl. And so Lil Wayne's Every Girl. And what I learned how to do was build up the hook first and then break it down. So I want to show you how I use just starting with that part to build up the hook. So I'll put that, take the bypass, so I'll turn the effect back on, and we're just going to look at the hook. I'll say this about the horns. I added the horns last, so I want to take those out real quick because I want to honor the process as much as possible. So I'm going to mute those for now. So this is kind of the part I built up first, right? So I had the Joe part, and what I wanted to do was kind of not depend so heavily on the sample, so I came up with this part. This is in Arcade. It's a joint called Hooked. I might have bounced up. I got bounced it already. So basically, Arcade gives you some samples. You can grab them in. They'll already tell you what key they're in. You can kind of match that to your song, and I added Cableguys Shaperbox effects to it. The next thing I did was I definitely had been listening to that. Jake 1 dropped a bunch of videos last week. Jake 1 dropped a bunch of videos last week where he was doing the breakdowns for the Nipsey Hussle stuff, and he dropped that new snare Jordan kit. And I was definitely inspired by the way he placed his drums right on the grid in Pro Tools. So I wanted to give that a try to give that more of a live feel. So I built that part up. So I had that part. Added a little hi-hats with it. This little hi-hat loop I got. And I stacked 2 hi-hat loops on top of each other. And I added this little percussion from the homie Jelie. And all that did was just kind of enhance the percussion in the snare. So then I want to just add some parts. I put this little swoosh in just to give it some texture and some movement. So when I say movement, it's like the illusion of more time passing. It just kind of gives a little more depth to the beat. And then I added from there what we call, here's the kick. And to me, then the soul of the beat is, where's my 808? So I use this, the Spins 808. the classic spins 808, but I put my little flavor on it. Everything after that is basically just ear candy, right? Stuff to kind of accent what's already there. Oh, there was this little part. So that's kind of the basic buildup. So I want to go back to. So I built up basically the hook, right? And so the hook is the most recognizable part of the song, generally the part that people think of when the song is mentioned, usually has the most elements of a song and all percussive parts. So what I did was, when I went back and listened to the whole thing, I felt like it was missing something, kind of like that main line for a vocalist or a rapper to follow. And so that's why I grabbed these horns out of Arcade. So even though the song is made up of more than just those parts, when you're talking about a hook, when somebody says, hey, that song, they're thinking about the hook generally, right? So now I want to go and talk about the intro, right? And this is where I want to bring the conversation to what I call variations, right? So to me, these different parts, the intro, the hook, the verse, and the bridge, they're just different versions of the song that you're experiencing at different times, right? So let's look at the hook. Because I realize the hook has a part in it the intro has a part in it that the hook doesn't have. And I realized I put that in there to kind of enhance the sample a little bit. So it's going to be this. And it kind of more follows the sample line. So I left the 808 in there as well, just to kind of set you up and support the sample again. Kick as well. If you think of it, it's kind of like verse light, like a lighter version of the verse. I left the swish in there to give me that movement. And I left that vocal sample in there from Arcade in there. My tag also. And then, so this last part where you see this hat loop, I want to talk about that. So then the next part is transitions, right? Elements and techniques used to indicate that the beat is moving from one part to another, right? And so there's a ton of ways you can do transitions. In this particular beat, here are the ways that I did it. One, I took out the last part of the sample, so there's going to be some audio drop off. I left in this part, that little vocal sample, I let it go all the way to the end of the bar. Same thing with the 808s. I also brought in a piece of the hi-hat loop that's going to start in the next part where the hook begins. And then I took out the kick drum and I started these hi-hats early. So I dropped out some elements that were in the intro and added some elements that were going to be in the hook in the very last eighth, the very last quarter, and the very last 16th of that loop. That gives it that feel like you're going from one part to the next, right? So there we've kind of covered, and I'll let that play again. Oh, also the other thing that I did was, originally there was an effect, a Shaperbox effect. I think I showed it, that was on there. On this Joe sample, the Shaperbox effect drops the pitch at the end too, and that's another way you could drop the pitch of a sound to kind of give you that transition. So now we're going to take a look at this verse. So the verse is like, it's a stripped down version of the hook, but it has more elements of the beat in it than are in the intro, right? And so as evidenced by that, you can see this one line right here that was not in the hook is also in the verse that kind of supports and enhances that sample. The reason I took it out of the hook is because The hook is bigger and louder, but you don't want to have it too messy. And that was just maybe a sound we didn't need sonically because of what else was going on, especially with all the drums and stuff. But by not having the hook, it gives me another option for variation in the first half of the verse. So let's hear the whole thing. So, a couple things. One, when you're dealing with the first half of a verse, you do want to have like a lighter build-up or like a different variation. And there's different ways to do it. You know, I could go, I think of making beats as a process of rising and falling. Like here with the intro, we rose and we fell. And then, you know, we fell right before we went back up for the hook. And then we fell again. And you can see the evidence if I took out this part of the sample. I didn't have that other line in there, and then you don't have the, I added this line, but then you don't have the horns in there. And the horns are what make that hook feel big, so once you take that out, it kind of drops it out, right? And, you know, different genres require different levels of it, but just kind of giving that effect. You also take out the hi-hats right here, too. This line of hi-hats. So then we're going to the second half of the verse. Now, I could either build that back up. You know, DJ Payne 1 has a video where he talks about how you can have the hook actually be the lowest part of the song. You could build back up to the second half of the verse. And here what I did was I didn't have this first line of hi-hats. I also took out that first snare. You can see. I had one line of the horns come back in to give you that feeling of the hook. But I took it out real quick so you just reminded. That kind of thing. So let's listen to it. I also took out that same line that was in the intro, not in the hook, in the first half of the verse. I left a piece of it in. So let's hear what that sounds like. You can see down here I took out the some of the drum sequence too, just to give it, you know, took out a piece, took out a little of the loop, just to create that again. This is the, you know, right here from that last, let's say, last couple of bars, that's where you want to start dropping stuff out to create your transition feel, right? And then what I did with the bridge was the bridge is basically the intro. Yeah, the bridge is basically the intro in this situation. But it creates that same kind of break feeling. That's why it's, you know, I might want to do some more variation, but it depends on the genre. So let's hear what this bridge is sounding like. So then you see how that comes nicely back into the hook. So according to this reason deal, I think I can just copy and paste these, and then that's what I get. I don't know if that works. I got to get up. No, they don't work like that. So I got to get up on that. What I would do, just as is, just because I know which parts are which, like boom, right there. Hook, first half of the verse, second half of the verse, bridge, back into the hook. Boom. I'm going to copy and paste that. That's 1:53. Songs are just under 3 minutes now. Hit that one more time. Song 2:44, that works for me. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just, you know, let it, you know, there used to be fade outs. Don't nobody fade out no more. You just drop the elements of the song out. And it's easy to go out on the, you know, some people, if you look on Kickback Couture, Jelie's video, she just fades it out. Or, excuse me, she just drops out she calls the intro and the outro the same thing. So. Yeah, take the drum elements out, boom. So yeah, that's sequencing basics. Again, you got sections. You got your intro, your hook, your verse. This is how you define all that. You got your transitions. There's 1,001,000 ways to transition a beat. You could do a sweep effect, just little sound effects, take parts out, add little ear candy parts, and then your variations. Basically, you're re-experiencing the song in a few different ways, and that's how you create your section. So, yeah. Thanks for joining me. BusyWorksBeats, TheLetterLBeats.com, the University of Illinois. The Art of Beatmaking, popular music, $4.99. Let's go.